Yes, good evening. It's a beautiful Friday, and we're right back. Kojo's Corner, right at the intersection of people, participation, power, and politics. We took last week off, lots of stuff happening. Our last episode, we had Jeremy Freiberger and John Best of the Bay Observer. Thank you for joining the show, episode 6. We were talking about housing and parking, Stony Creek, Hamilton, Strong Mayor Powers. So if you haven't seen that episode, you can check it out on our YouTube channel, Kojo's Corner. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get the notifications. But today I am excited to have the one and only Dante in the house on the episode. I can say you are the first young person on Kojo's Corner. So we are glad to have you on today's episode, and we're going to be talking about lots of stuff. So basically, to all our viewers, listeners, watchers, this is all about young people, right? So everything that we're going to be talking about is focused on young people. So, Dante, can you give us a little intro? Can you tell us who you are, what you are interested in? What just give us a short intro of Dante.
Hey everyone, how we doing? Happy Friday. My name is Daunte Hillen. I'm 15 years old. I'm in grade 10. Go to Sherwood. Uh, I'm a self-taught trumpeter. I play bass clarinet. I love football, baseball, and debate and politics. It's an
All
honor
right.
to be here.
All right, thanks. That's good. Hey, from one fellow musician to another, I like it. I like it. Self-taught piano player myself, so I like those vibes. So, um, you have been involved in lots of things in Hamilton. I'm not going to go in depth into them. I think we're going to focus on the things that you want to talk about today. Like, how can you just tell us how you got started, what motivated you to be so active in your community here in Hamilton?
So it actually started at a pretty young age. This is around election time in 2022. I just saw so many like opportunities, right, and so many people getting involved, and I'm like, what is this? So I got a feel for it, and I figured out this is something I really want to do, right? Like, not necessarily something my friends were doing, but it's something that I wanted to do because like I spent days on campaigns that year, you know, and I met so many cool people like Kojo.
So let's get into it. So you are one of the participants of the page program that the Ontario legislature kind of organizes. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and what you learned and how you got involved?
So the legislative page program was like honestly a life changing program for me. So I surfed in the SP 22-1 cohort. So this was back in 2022. So late February to like early mid March, and I learned so many like valuable lessons. I got to meet like some key figures of Ontario and like our legislatures and the people who like made the decisions, made the bills, and really like powered the parliament of our Ontario. And it was just like a changing opportunity for me. Excuse me. And
And
it was just
and
like, sorry.
go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
And it's just like, starting then, it's like really when I discovered this passion and this fire.
And what do pages do? Can you tell us what they do?
So as a page, there's an assortment of different things that you do. So you like deliver key documents to from across the room to the chamber. So you're in the chamber with the MPPs. So you're like bringing petitions, bills, sometimes books, water, and like the transcripts of their notes. You bring that to like Hansard, and like so like there's a room upstairs where the people would like write down the like script of everything that was said. And you like take the notes of the speeches and deliver it to the people in the room and type it.
Hmm. Can you share with us like like a particular moment that stuck with you when you were in the page program?
I think it was learning about like the diverse population of politicians that we have, because in that program, the preparation, there's a lot. You have to learn all 124 MVPs. So I think that was the key part in contributing to like the experience, because it really taught me like not only like perseverance, patience, but also like, you know, getting a understanding of like, you know, who represents who, and like, where do they stand, that type of stuff.
How long were you in the program for?
So I was in the program for about 3 weeks, but very rarely this happens where I got called back for a second term in the summer. It was like an emergency term after the election. So I had to relearn all the new elected MPPs. So that was pretty fun.
Okay, good, good. And do they give you any certificates or anything like that?
Oh yeah, here I actually have the certificate on me here.
Nice, nice,
And
nice.
there's like a nice picture.
Of oh, nice. Okay.
So there's a typically there's a cohort of around like 20 students, but this was like middle of COVID. So we still had a bit less participants than usual, but that didn't take away from the experience at all. I met people from like Northern Ontario, here in Hamilton, all over the province. Some of those people like from the program are still my friends to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so 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 good. And just because you mentioned it, I know there are people watching. I'm gonna put in the link. If you have young ones that want to be involved, there's the link to learn about the page program, because you have to apply, right?
Yeah, please do apply. It's very a prestigious program in Toronto, and we're trying to make it like big in Hamilton, because like recently there've been a lot more pages in Hamilton, and it's a
Nice.
really good thing to see, because like I'm not saying that I like taking all the credit for that, but I'm saying like we're starting a wave in Hamilton, and it's good to feel.
Yeah, so anyone watching, if you have young ones, be in a page in the legislature, Ontario legislator, that is something that you can engage in. And as Dante said, we need some more representation from Hamilton. Hamilton, stand up in the Ontario legislature. So there we go. Let's transition to an important topic that I think um uh, it, all students, if I can say that, all students across this country and even in the world are dealing with when it comes to mental health. So can you tell us what is some of the work that you've been doing to address mental health in the province and here in Hamilton?
So I've actually had the great honor to be a part of Thrive SMH, which is a student mental health advisory from students from all across Ontario. And what we do is we work on like different framework. So we like propose to the ministry sometimes. We come together and we like kind of prepare for these like leadership meetings that we have. So this year we have a leadership meeting in Mississauga in June, where we get to like connect with social workers and the School to Health Ontario team to like get some of our ideas across, because the people that I work with are like really amazing. The students on this group work so hard, and like I'm proud to be part of that group. And there's some like really amazing work that gets done there in terms of like advocacy, and like we get like some posters. We make posters. We make blog posts. We do all sorts of things to get like information out to educators, parents, guardians, and the students. So like posters in schools, posters in libraries, all sorts of different resources the students work on. And there are some amazing social workers and team members that overlook us.
And so what are some of the messages, what are some of the messages uh, that are in some of the resources that you've been creating and sharing?
So one of our main themes that we kind of centered on the last conference was identity affirming mental health. So that was a really big component. Some more was like kind of like perfectionism in grade 12 and like beyond. There's a lot of topics I'm trying to remember.
Let's take the ones that you've mentioned. So what when you say perfectionism or the identity affirming uh, responses, what does that mean?
So like for perfectionism, it's like the stress and like the big expectations that you have in grade 12 to perform, knowing that post secondary or the workplace, any sort of post secondary is coming up.
Hmm.
So you have like a weighted amount of pressure on you
Hmm.
to to perform.
Hmm. And so how do what is the response to then deal with that expectation of like wanting to get 99s and what have you for post secondary college, trade school, whatever, what how would you talk to students that are dealing with that expectations?
Well, first, I just want to say, like, take some time for yourself, right? As much as you want to make time to pursue these 99s and these high grades to go to post secondary, take time for wellness, take time for yourself, right? Like, take a Friday or Saturday night off. A lot of times people will pull like all nighters. Some people even pull consecutive all nighters. I've been there. I'm not in grade 12 or 11 yet, but I've been there. I feel like that's something that like it's pretty common experience in high school having to pull at least one all nighter. But I
Hmm.
just say practice wellness. There's
Hmm.
actually quite a few wellness activities on the School Mental Health Ontario website that I can send to you after. But they like range from like classroom activities all the way to home activities, and some are like challenges over a long period of time.
Hmm. And then you mentioned the identity reaffirming um, responses. So can you expand on that a little bit?
So identity affirming is like it's just really accepting who you are and all the work that you do, knowing that like you being yourself is like it's amazing, and
Hmm.
like showing that in your work. So
Hmm.
saying like you don't have to change to live up to other people's expectations. You're good and like you're strong as the person who you are, and we want to support no matter what, like no matter what you want to do.
Yeah, that is something that all students need to hear. Elementary, middle, high school, even some of the post-secondary. I teach in post-secondary, and I think yeah, that is a very important statement to make. So yeah, so thank you very much for that work. So what's coming up for this group, the Thrive School Mental Health? What are the things that we can look forward to, or what are the things that you are working on with students and in schools?
So right now, excuse me, we're building up to our provincial leadership meeting in June. So right now we're working on different projects to bring to the 1 day conference that we'll be attending in Mississauga. So guess that's going to be like an addition to some of the curriculum that we worked on last year. So I think maybe like some new activities are going to come out, but also maybe some new blog posts. We are looking for applications, but I don't think we're in Hamilton. I think it's more Toronto and Northern Ontario school boards.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's important work. I wish you and the team all the best at the leadership conference
Thank you.
in June. Yes. So next up, we've I guess we're maybe let me do this. You were also involved in model parliament. I want to do the provincial stuff first, and then we get to the local stuff. So, you were involved in Model Parliament. What was that program about? And Can you share any highlights from that experience?
Model Parliament was like it just blew my mind. It was like such a great program. I learned so much, and I totally recommend it to any high school student who is interested. Even if you don't know if you're interested, I'd still recommend to apply. And so what it is it's a 3 day in person like summit, I guess, like conference, with the last day being like a full on debate day in the chamber. So you apply in like September and like October, November, later in the year. And then once like if you're successful in applying, there's a online component where you prepare like bills, legislations, and you also get broken up into three different parties. So the parties aren't the same as like the current legislature. However, there are like different, I guess, like places that people stand on the political spectrum. So there was like a centrist party, a more right leaning party, and then a left leaning party. So we were the government. We
Uh-huh.
were the government. So we were the left leaning party. And what we worked on is different legislations. So there was like a one bill that we worked on, and then like there were like ministers. You could apply to be a minister. So I was the Minister of Indigenous Affairs. So I got to, it was really, really cool. Like being a minister, you don't have to be, there aren't very many positions, but it definitely adds to the experience because you get to learn a bit more about like maybe a area of interest, because that was something that I found very interesting. But then leading up to that 3 day conference, when you go to Queen's Park, the first 2 days, the first day there's like you get to meet everyone because you just worked with everyone for months, but all you saw was like a profile picture or like just someone's camera. So it was so nice to meet everybody because there was like 124 and then 120 in-person participants
Mhm.
from all over Ontario. So it was so cool to meet everybody. Honestly, it was just such a life-changing experience for me. I got to brush up on my debate skills a bit too, and a bit on my French language.
Ooh, Hamilton is a bilingual city, so yeah, that French is important. Can you tell us about the bill that your government your model government was working on?
So ours was we didn't get to pick the topic, so they just assigned one. So we got the an act for mandatory paid co-ops. So these aren't like current bills. They just
Hmm.
kind of want to make something that's like kind of distance from like what would
The act.
happen.
Hmm.
So we got to work on making like co-ops mandatory. Our bill ended up failing
Oh
after
no.
making so many amendments. But
Mhm.
honestly, I won't let that distract the fact that it was a really good program, and like I got to like really learn some key debating skills that I never would have gotten,
Mhm.
but also like networking.
So why did your bill fail if you are the government? Didn't you have more MPPs?
No, we didn't actually have a super majority. It was like a really close minority. We were
Okay.
off by like a couple of seats because some people actually ended up leaving the program,
Okay. Okay.
like for
And
personal reasons. So,
this is me just being inquisitive. What were the reasons from the other parties, model parties?
I guess the key factors were like I thought the amendments we made were like pretty good, but like I can't think for the other people,
Hmm.
right? Because like I think there was more of like an alliance between the two other parties. So I think
Mm,
they like made some amendments that kind of like work together.
mm-hmm,
So like I can't really say why our bill failed. Like
hmm.
our team did work on some pretty good amendments, but like
Yeah.
I don't take it personally.
Hmm. Hmm. So does that give you a little insight into how politics is?
Yeah, very much. It's
Yeah.
humbling a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's necessary.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's interesting. And did you have to do anything because you were the Minister of Indigenous Affairs?
Um, No, because it's less of a talked about um, topic when it comes to the in-person module.
Hmm.
There's a lot of questions for like Minister of Finance, transportation,
Hmm.
infrastructure,
Hmm.
like Indigenous affairs is, I guess, less of a common and like talked about issue, which is like I see as a problem sometimes because like there's some very important conversations to be had when we refer and talk about Indigenous affairs in Ontario, because like that's kind of where most of our resources come from in the north, and these are our Indigenous like communities.
Hmm. Hmm. And are there any other issues related to indigenous peoples and communities and nations that you felt needed to be discussed more, or you would like to see discussed more?
Definitely. So ending the long-term water boil advisories, because water and housing is a human right, and I think like we all should know this. We all have a right to this, and like it makes me feel like a certain way when I know that we're still not focusing on these problems, and there are people who will never get the attention, never get the help or the funding that they need. So that's like was like one of my main focuses walking into Queen's Park with that mindset, even though it was a model parliament. That was like still something that resonates to this day, and it's something that I still think about and want to focus.
Yes, yes. You are 1,000,000% correct on that. And I think there are some folks that are watching and some are commenting. I think we have someone that's saying it's definitely a problem that they are not talked about. So those that are watching would agree with you as well. Um, the model parliament, in terms of did you do a question period?
Yeah, it was like a lot of electric. There's a lot of
Oh,
action. Um,
a lot of
it kind of
action.
worked similar to the other one. It got pretty heated at the
Yeah,
start.
yeah, yeah. Were there actual questions and actual answers being given?
Yes, it was a bit of theatrics, I can't lie, but it was
Mhm.
entertainment and it was some accountability given to both all sides.
Hmm. Hmm. Good, good. Well, I'm glad you were able to experience that. I think these some of these programs, these page programs, the model parliaments. I think locally here in Hamilton, there's the model city hall. Like these are all beneficial programs for young people to participate in because one, it gives them insight into how things how decision making is done, and what you need, if you so choose to be engaged. What are the things that you need to know? You we're going to be talking about writing in a bit. So writing, doing research, connecting with people, collaborating with people, seeing how other people think from you, right? Not everybody has the same thought process or where they come from, right? So these are things that young people definitely, um, yeah, definitely need when they get into a program like this. So for those of you out there, again, I did put the link there about the model parliament for high schools, and it says grade 10 to 12. So any students from grade 10 to 12 can definitely go through the process. So we've done your and again, those watching, this is amazing to have a young person do work provincially, right? uh Being at Queen's Park in Toronto, spending their day there, supporting MPPs, seeing how decision making happens in Ontario. That's your legislative work. That's your provincial legislative work. So again, thank you for doing that work. So let's transition now to local. because you mentioned you're a Hamilton resident and you also do stuff here locally. So the first is uh, you talked about being engaged in 2022 during an election and maybe prior to that, um, and you won a prize or a designation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually, for the 2022 municipal election, they held their first ever essay contest for high schoolers. And myself and another Sherwood student, Coach actually has it on the screen now. We got to write an opinion piece about voter turnout was one of the questions, and what would you do if you were mayor? So I wrote about the voter turnout, and you can see on the screen some of the points that I wrote.
Yeah, and the issue of voter of low voter turnout in municipal elections, and even now, even provincial elections, federal, it's there's still a low turnout, but compare if you are comparing federal to provincial to municipal, federal is always higher, right? So I want to read some sections and then get your response, right? So you say the decline of voter turnout always becomes the crutch of elections, like local news weather forecast. We know what rains feel like, and how it impacts our day. However, just like rain, we still need to hope for the sun, dream of the changing wind, and presently and are pleasantly surprised by the rainbow after the storm. Unfortunately, voter turnout is that voter turnout is the rainbow not always visible, right? So why what would be, or let me just, why do you think there's low voter turnout?
That's a really good question. I think maybe part of it has to do with the process being unappealing. And when I mean unappealing, I mean like unengaging, especially because the age of voting is so broad, right? And like all residents are voting like in the same election. And I feel like even though we've learned to adopt different systems like, like early advanced polling and like, mail in ballots. I don't know if we do that here, but I think like those things are less appealing to our citizens and like our voters. But also I think like the barriers that come to these voting, like to voting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. um yeah, it's yeah, I mean, appealing and people not being engaged. Yeah, I think those would be the some of the first responses. Let's move to another paragraph where you say low voter turnout impacts and threatens democracy because it does not give a true reflection of the city's population when voter turnout is dismal. My parents' generations grew up hearing their elders and grandparents saying, if you don't exercise your right to vote, then you don't have the right to you don't have the right to complain. Right? So, you know, when you say it threatens democracy, can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think like the term of democracy is like so multifaceted and like, can be interpreted as different ways.
Hmm.
But I think how we see democracy here is like, everyone has a say. And I feel like not everyone has a say when not everyone comes forward and participates in these systems that we've like chosen to represent everybody.
Hmm.
Also, I want to add on like earlier, like what the problem with low voter turnout also is people not finding candidates that they can get behind, right? And this is just for municipal. This is for everything. Like I feel like there's not as many candidates that like people can get behind because there's so many different like policies, but also like passion and
Hmm.
sometimes experience. I don't think like I think experience matters, but also you can have a candidate who's younger and who still has the same values and the same like strength.
So let's dig into that a little bit, because what you just said, I think not many people say this. So can you repeat that again? You said sometimes the candidates that are running don't offer people a choice. Can you expand a little bit on that? You don't have to name candidates. I'm just saying, like, when you, because I think that's a thing, right? Like, if you're going to vote in an election and you look at all the three people or five people or seven people or eight people, and you don't feel like any of them connect with you, then you're going to stay home, right? Or you're not going to vote. So how do you how do we address that? What can we do to um yeah, to minimize that?
I think like maybe more debates and more times for like engagement with our candidates. But also I think like where most people fall between like the cracks is like sometimes party politics because I feel like that's a pretty like deep context to go into, but I feel like that's where it happens is like people will tend to fall behind. Obviously, like municipal isn't party politics, so I think like when we're speaking from more municipal, I think just more opportunities to hear from everybody, but also to like challenge their thinking with accountability.
Mhm.
Because I feel like you know issues here in Ward 8 aren't the same in Ward 1, but there are so many issues that line up. But
Mhm.
obviously, because our geographical location is different,
Mhm.
there's different issues that come up. So I think like challenging everyone, challenging their thinking, and bringing everyone together is like something that could help.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Let's stay on that a little bit. We have lots of time. You said the party politics, right? So we're not going to name any parties, just like in your model parliament. We're going to use that model. Um, um, how? I mean, if we have a system that is based on political parties, how do we then break free from the hyper partisan, right? Because if I'm a supporter of party A and you're a supporter of party B, right? How do we make sure that we are not isolated in our party A and party B?
That's a really good question because like there's so many stigmas because it's like, oh, you're a different party from me, right? Like those that's a really big stigma, and I think like maybe understanding that some policies might connect even though they're different, like like party B might have one policy that's exactly the same as party A or is slightly different. So I think like maybe collaborating, not when you're writing the policies, but having like, you know, maybe like political analysts or like, you know, people who professionalize in like, I guess, analyzing these policies to kind of compare, but also to like write it in a way where it's like you can collaborate on these things. It's not like there doesn't have to be polarization and like opposition. I feel like there's collaboration to be had.
Man, we need you as like the official Ontario party broker to get parties to work together. That was insightful. That was insightful. So um on on let me I think I'll ask this question now, because I've been asked. People were asking me on Instagram, and people have been sending me message. So Operation Black Vote, they were on one of our episodes that we did during Black History Month and International Women's Month, and Velma Morgan, the chairperson, said, you know, maybe it's time to change the voting age to 16. What's your thought on that?
I think I agree with that for one main reason. I think because it's like it really ties into the theme of civic engagement, right? I think like it can also start out on the campaign because if we're having 16-year-olds vote, we can have 16-year-olds volunteer on campaigns to really see like and find out like where they might stand. So I think that really boosts voter turnout because there's now more voters and there's now more, like databases to be had. So I think like extending that age to 16 is like inviting more conversations to be had because like, there's definitely way more people like than just me who probably feel the same way and like might have some insightful information like I just shared a bit earlier. So I think like because some people don't think about this, but I think like if you're inviting more people to vote and you're allowing us to vote on these things, I think it'll help us open our eyes and
Mhm,
really like assess these policies and really think like, wow, this deeply resonates with me, or
mhm,
maybe I don't agree with this as much. Is there somewhere where I can meet in the middle, or maybe I fully opposed to this?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think Velma said this best, and I wanted to get your answer before I say this. But she said, if you're 16 and you can drive a car and you can work and pay taxes, then you should be able to vote. If you're 16 and you can join a riding association, then you should be able to vote. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I know there are people that say, you're too young, you don't know what the policies are, blah blah blah. But we can say, hey man, Dante knows, he knows, and Dante knows people who knows, and other people who know. So uh uh yeah, I think we're having some comments coming, so that's why. So we have the idea that 16-year-olds can be trusted to drive, but cannot be trusted with a vote in how our governments run is ridiculous.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I
Because
think
these are the roads.
I,
These are the roads that our governments are, they're building these new highways. They're they're like regulating these roads. I think if we're on these roads, we should have a vote and a say in how these roads are maintained. Because like some people might access this to go to their jobs or to go to riding association meetings, like you previously mentioned. But really, I agree with 16-year-olds like should have the right to vote.
don't get Dante started. Yeah, so we had some more comments again, especially because most are working and paying taxes. So I think, and Velma made this. I didn't even, my and I think Dante, you said it. My point was, if you want, young people are engaged in different ways, right? But if we want them holistically engaged, yes, change the voting to 16, and you see that. But then her arguments, like you've made, and folks commenting, is that, yeah, if they are working, then they should be able to vote, because every 2 weeks there's a thing there that says federal and provincial taxes and CPP and all of those things. So they should, and you put it perfectly. If they are driving to work, if they are driving to work, they best be able to vote to decide.
Exactly.
You
We're
know,
attending like schools in Ontario funded by the ministry. We should have a say in what the ministry does. I mean, sorry.
yeah,
Like we're
yeah.
living in Ontario and we're living in these provinces. I think the people who are making these decisions should have our say too, and also accountability because, like when youth unite, there's some pretty powerful movements.
Yeah, what Dante said. um, so uh, you mentioned education, and obviously you're in high school. Obviously, you have friends that are also in high school, post secondary, whatnot. Um, how would you characterize our current educational systems and institutions?
Mm, it's a tough one.
Well, okay, let me put it this way then. Let me put it this way. Next calendar year or next academic year, you are going. What role are you filling?
So I actually have the honor of being the second one at Garland, so the Indigenous Student Trustee. So go ahead, sorry.
So no, no, you guys. So um, what? Why do you want to be a student trustee? And what work are you looking forward to do as a student trustee?
Well, so actually, I was raised by CC Rose, so the Indigenous student group of the school board. So cultivating community, reclaiming our spaces in education. And can I explain a bit more about like the process of it?
You can explain as much as you want.
So what we use the an Indigenous governance. So it's the three sisters, our sustenance. So corn, beans, and squash. So my role is corn. So what Sego and Agarlados translates to is like they lift or they raise their voices. So my role is to raise the voices of members of CC Rose, but also Indigenous students of our board. And so like I have some big plans for my term, and like I haven't really come up with like a list of specific, like priorities yet, but I'm keeping in mind of like some current projects that are held by the student trustees because we haven't had a Sagawana Garladot since um, I believe it was like 2022. So I'm stepping back into the role after a bit of an absence. So I think I'm coming in with like a growth mindset and just like, you know, the sense of coming in every day and, really challenging myself and thinking our Indigenous students well represented.
And so maybe once you start the role, we'll bring you back. But let me ask, do you think indigenous students are well represented?
Uh, I would say there's some work to be done. Um, that's mainly like one of the reasons why I've stepped into this role. It's for accountability and like raising the voices of our CC Rose members. Um, it's a great honor to work and sometimes to like change the system, you gotta go into the system and you have to like, kind of internalize and work like from the inside out. So I think like, understanding that I'm going to the school board and doing work. So I think like there are things being done. So like I like to acknowledge that there are things being done at the school board for Indigenous students, and there's definitely more work to be done.
Hmm.
Uh, like we do have a student group, which I think is really good to acknowledge. But I think like we lack like conferences or like spaces with social worker time with educators, like Indigenous educators, and really like close to no cultural components or like like also like portrayals of Indigenous excellence.
Hmm. Yeah, um, that's an important work to be done, and I'm gonna drop this here. There's a possibility that we might have some more young people on Kojo's Corner in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. um, I wanted us to end on the following. So, as I mentioned, um, every time we have a show, we promote it on Instagram, on the X and other places, and um we had some questions from some people. So they wanted me to ask you some of these questions. So, and if you don't want to, that's fine. You can just say pass. So the first one is, who inspires you?
When I think of people who inspire me, I think of Patrick Mahomes. Uh,
Ooh. Okay, okay.
uh, I also think of I guess Dizzy Gillespie um, as a trumpet player, um, but also Oscar Peterson because I'm a huge fan of jazz, and like his work inspires me.
Hmm.
Hearing his charts and his
Hmm.
various work.
Nice. You didn't say your parents? Come on now. You're gonna
I,
get in trouble. You're gonna get in trouble.
of course, my parents. I know I forgot that one. My parents are giving me a roof on top of my head, clothes on my back, but also acknowledging like not everyone has the privilege of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good list right there. The next question was, what are other students' responses to the work that you do?
Um, I get some sort of like mixed responses. Some people like look at it from a distance because like they notice like sometimes I'm not in the classroom and I'm missing school to go to these, but it's like relatively positive. Sometimes I encourage people to come join me in these, and sometimes they do. So that like really like makes me feel good. Not only like bringing my friends into this, but also opening like more doors for them, and also like you know feeling that sense like, oh, I remember when I was there one day, and like look where it's gotten me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So hopefully like starting a new journey for them.
And I think the follow up was, do they get involved too? So you answered that, and maybe I'll follow up with saying, so when some of your friends or colleagues join you, what are their responses after they've joined you? Is it like, thank you, wow, I didn't know this, or I'm going to continue doing this? Like, what has been the response?
Yeah, it's always been positive, like and I'm like grateful that people have come to work on me, like work with me, sorry, and like see like a new perspective of how things work,
Hmm.
and like people have relatively like come with an open mind, and that's like something that really like brings me joy when I bring like some of my friends into these spaces to learn. They learn so much, and like it's helped me grow as a person, and like they thank me because like
Hmm.
we've all grown as people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, the next one is, what are the biggest political issues you hear students talk about?
Uh, I think the biggest political issues among students varies like slightly from school to school. Like when we're talking about like high schools, but also like post-secondary institutions, trade schools, all sorts of different like institutions. However, we have a lot of shared issues like climate, education supports, and affordability. Um, when I talk about like climate, I'm talking about the feeling of like eco anxiety. Like, do you want me to explain the term a bit more?
It's all you. It's all you, bro.
So eco anxiety is like the feeling that you get like when about our climate. So a lot of youth have been experiencing eco anxiety because it's something that's like so sudden. Like it's like come from the inaction of some leaders who might have, could have stopped like the usage of like fossil fuels and things that are negative to our climate. So I think that's like one of the burning topics. Um, bread is expensive, and I love my parents and sister, but I'm not really trying to live in the basement forever because having owning a house is a target of mine one day. But in this market, it's difficult. So bread is expensive. I would just say that one.
Oh man, okay, yeah, bread is definitely expensive.
You want me to go a little bit more? I have a little
Yes,
bit more.
yes, please, please.
I would also say that the issues that we're facing can also unite us or divide us. Right? We just need to learn how to have meaningful conversations and sometimes agree to disagree. Honestly, students get this concept because we don't always agree with what we are learning or be told by adults in the room, right? So sometimes like we'll challenge some of the curriculum that we might not see like, fit, or like we might not see ourselves represented in. And I've seen a lot of that advocacy like in the classroom. So I guess we would also need to learn how to make positive change, not focus on changing minds.
Wow. Can you repeat that again?
I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I've been under the weather a bit lately, but
Yeah, but can you repeat that line again?
the whole thing or just like the last
No,
part.
the part about not changing minds,
So I
but
guess we would also need to learn how to make positive change, not focus on changing minds.
minds. Wow, wow, wow. Keep going, brother. Keep going.
So you have the next question? Sorry,
Okay,
that's all
next question. Okay, excuse me.
I have.
Okay, I think we talked about this a little bit more, but maybe you have some more ideas. What suggestions do you have to increase political engagement among young people?
It's a great question. So I'd say present the opportunities time and time again. Uh, we're the generation that is overstimulated, but not always consulted. Sorry, we might have everything at our fingertips, literally, but that doesn't mean we get the big concepts. Uh, mental health is the new buzzwords, but are students really getting the help and support that we need? Like that's something that I oftentimes will ask myself. Um, help sometimes is not asking, "Are you okay?" Support is sometimes asking for the hundredth time if you want to do something or try something new. Students want to feel like they belong to something bigger, to some bigger cause and purpose. One of my favorite mindsets is challenging the idea that it's great to be the first to do something, but it's fantastic when that turns into not being the only. And like I adopted that for like presentations. Like, when I'm in like history class and I have to present one of my presentations, and no one wants to go. So I raise my hand and I present. And that really like gets I think like gets people going because they're like, oh, there's someone who wants to go first. Now I have a little bit more time to prepare, right? But also like I can get some valuable feedback.
Yeah. Um I'm like, man, you are here spitting truths like nobody's business. Um yeah, so I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for taking um time to talk to us, to share your knowledge, your
Thank you for having
expertise,
me. It's an honor.
your lived experience with everybody that's watching. Look, we've had about close to 70 or so people watching. And
Thank you for watching, everybody. Stream Kojo on Spotify.
look, and uh, and and some of the stuff that you've said has been like very revealing, right? So I think that it's important to hear young voices. It's important to connect with young people to see, what's important to them, how they want to change the world, and what you said. You said it's not about changing minds, but it's about making a positive change. I think that's probably the most profound thing I've heard this whole week, and I'm going to use that, right? It's not about changing minds, but it's about making positive change. So I'm going to give you the last word, whatever you want to say,
Of
and
course.
and then we end it on episode 7 of Kojo's Corner.
Just for a final thought. I think it was at an Empowerment Squared event where my mom and sister went to. And they heard some really amazing speakers. The one that stuck and shared with me, you deserve to be in any room you want to be in. So that's what I would pass on to students who want to get started, but maybe feel intimidated or unsure where to start. Ride the roller coasters now before you change your mind or change your mind to fear it. And I have one last thing to say. It's a good thing that we chose to go on this Friday because next Friday I'm turning 16, and I would have had nothing to talk about that I did when I was 16 because it'd be the first day. So that's a pretty bad one, but
Hopefully, maybe you lead the charge to get the voting age to change to 16.
I would love
So
to work on that.
wait, so that means that in 2026 you'll be able to vote.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So there we have it. You're definitely gonna vote. You're gonna get your colleagues and your friends and your family to go and vote. Whatever voting happens in 2026. So, once again, thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you're doing. We hope and we hope that you continue to do this work, and we hope that you continue to do great things. You continue to make that positive change that you've talked about. So everybody that's tuning in, I think today, this Friday and the weekend, this is the quote. It's not about changing minds, it's about positive change. So, wherever you are, please make that positive change. And again, thank you for tuning in on Kojo's Corner, where at the intersection of people, participation, power, and politics. Next week, we have a Hamilton resident joining us to talk about cycling, to talk about why it's important to improve cycling infrastructure, not just in Hamilton, but across the GTH and Ontario in general. So we'll stay tuned. Follow our Instagram, Kojo's Corner, or follow us on X, Kojo's Corner, YouTube. Subscribe, and you find out who the next guest is. And just as an aside, he is one of the coaches of Cycle Hamilton. So yes, so that conversation is also going to be an interesting one. And then the following week we'll be talking about intimate partner violence. And then the following week, we'll see if we can have some more young people on this show talking about things that they are concerned about. So, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And again, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. If you're not following us on Instagram, please do so. Kojo's Corner, and on X, Kojo's Corner. Thank you very much, Mr. Dante. Always a pleasure.
it was an honor. Love to be back one day.
We are always welcome. Good night, everyone.